it's a really good time to make a deal, to ask for a raise, to tell your boss to go, you know what, themselves, because you're going to start your own business or do something else. Like, you know, you're just taking the effort and taking the energy and going about doing things. And because it's Jupiterian, it's in a big and very sometimes public way, or a very outward way that you're doing it. And you're going to feel confident and feel good about it. Aloha everybody, and welcome to the Wild Wahine. This is Kaylani, and this is your astro forecast for this week, February 1st through the 6th. Happy February. And yes, we will be digging into some of the most important astrological transits for this week that I think are going to affect you in a very positive way, and then also, you know, might cause a little damper, a little challenge here and there, but then you have all the information so that you can make fantastic choices in your life. So we're going to be starting off talking about the new moon in Aquarius, and we're going to go to Mercury stationing direct, which is fantastic because all of our planets will be direct at this point, so it gives us a lot of energy and momentum forward. What's also supporting that is Mars sextiling Jupiter, which is a lot of that big energy to kind of get stuff done and have all the bravado and everything else that we need to do it. But then we're going to end with the Sun squaring Saturn, which puts a little bit of a check on that to make sure that we're doing the things that we should be doing, that we're doing them with integrity, and that we're responsible about how we're doing it. And so that's kind of sort of the feel of this week's energy. So let's dig in and talk about that. So we're starting off this week essentially on this new moon in Aquarius. So this is a very Saturnian new moon. I had a conversation about this, more details. If you want to hear more of a breakdown on that and some horoscopes that are associated with that, make sure you check out my Instagram at @the_wild_wahine, and you can listen to the replay of the Clubhouse room. I had a live room this Sunday where we kind of sort of dug a little bit deeper in that, but it's important for me to talk about it for the forecast because it essentially is like the kickoff energy of February. You know, where are we building something that's going to be sustainable and unique for ourselves? Where are we planting our seed? Where are we allowing the roots to grow and building that foundation? Now we have Saturn in its home sign of Aquarius. So this is a place where we're creating something that is unique, that is new, that might be separate than what everyone else is doing. We might be laughed at a little bit. People might not have a lot of faith in us, but it's really about the solo faith that we have in ourselves or the things that we want to do. This tends to be something that might be a little challenging, something that is multi-layered, something that you might eventually need some support with. But a lot of times when you're first starting something, it's pretty much all about you. You're the person that has to do it. You're the person that has to, like, you know, dig up the soil and plant that seed in and water it. And then when your garden starts to flourish, you can then ask for help and have people come along. But, you know, you have to make that decision and what you're going to do and what you're going to build, especially if it's been something that's been on the back burner. We've had so much energy, retrograde energy, just with the start of this year, which is like we stepped back a little bit before we moved forward, and now is the time to move forward. We have a Lunar New Year for the Chinese New Year that's happening for everybody that celebrates that. So this is energy moving forward, and it should feel good about what you're doing, even though it's kind of serious, even though it's a little bit more intense, and even though it's focused, you know, because whenever you're building something that eventually will grow into something else, you know, it's serious. It means it's going to last a long time, which means that it needs to be built on a really strong foundation, and it needs to have some integrity just in the building. So what are you building? What are you creating? What do you want to create now that's going to last a long time? Where is that new place? And how is that place, where Aquarius is, you know, wherever that is in your chart, like what is the new thing that's happening in that? And that's the area that you're going to be focusing on. We also have Mercury stationing direct after being retrograde first in Aquarius. It retrograded back to Capricorn, and now it's stationing direct. So now essentially all of our planets are direct, which is a nice big oomph forward. And Mercury, though, is going to be having this conversation with Pluto as it conjuncts Pluto as it's going forward again. And in that conversation, things will come up that are hidden, things will come up that we're trying to be covered, things that need to be talked about in that Capricorn placement. The Capricorn placement in our chart has been getting a lot of energy. I've been talking about that for a while in my Venus retrograde in Capricorn video that I had. Like, that is just a place where we've been really renegotiating a lot of things in our life and how we're going to do it, and really trying a lot of different things and feeling frustrated, and then feeling like we're backtracking, we're not moving forward because we haven't been, it's been retrograde. And so finally now we're able to move forward and really use our mind and our skill set and our ways to communicate to try to figure out how we're going to work these things out that are important in our lives, that are kind of foundational, especially in that place wherever Capricorn is in your chart. Now it will be conjunct Pluto, which means things are going to come up. Again, you're like, haven't I already found out enough? Like, there's still more. What's going on? Yeah, there's more. So that's just what's happening. But at least now planets are stationed direct. So it means that everything that you're doing now and all the stuff that you're learning, you're going to be able to apply it moving forward. Now, in the mundane sense, which is like in terms of what's happening in the world, what's interesting about that is this energy with Mercury stationing direct on February 3rd at 24 degrees Capricorn is essentially the same degree in the US Sibley chart, which is the birth chart of the United States. In Cancer has a Mercury retrograde at 24 degrees. So what's interesting is transiting Mercury is going to be opposing the United States' Mercury. Also, transiting Mercury will be conjunct Pluto, and we're having a Pluto return, which I've talked about a little bit in my 2022 year ahead forecast, with the United States having a Pluto return, which is like all of the stuff that's hidden, all of the stuff that we don't like, all of our shame, all of our shadow is coming up out of the dirt like a zombie and saying, look at me, see me, acknowledge me, and, you know, we need to deal with the shit, you know, and that's essentially what's happening. You know, things coming up, scandals coming up, things that were hidden, people trying to hide things, and the hidden part or the scandal around that coming out. Be prepared for some of that information. It's going to happen in our everyday lives. It's going to happen in the mundane sense in the world. Whistleblowers, investigative journalists coming up with things, a story they've been working on for a while, and they finally cracked it because somebody spoke and somebody said something. Some of those things are going to be coming up. Some of them might be shocking and very destabilizing. That is kind of a Plutonian thing. It's about like destabilizing. It's the death of the way that you were thinking, and now something is different, and maybe you feel different. You feel transformed from that. When you have new information, sometimes it does transform you. So those are some of the things that can come up with that energy. Nothing that we're going to like completely fall apart over. You know, this Pluto return is happening over the series of like a year or 2 or 3, right? Because it's going to retrograde back and go. So it's not just one particular incident when it's exact. It's just how we're going to be feeling about new things popping up and us really coming to terms with the country and what it's done and where it's moving forward, you know, because that's why we kind of dig up the past, so we can, you know, come to some sort of justification with it and figure out what we're going to do as a new body moving forward. But sometimes it gets a little ugly. It can feel very shameful, and there can be a lot of trauma associated with that. Next up, we have Mars in Capricorn. It's going to be sextiling Jupiter in Pisces. We're going to be feeling this energy now all the way until the 10th. It's at 8 degrees, and it's going to be exact on the 4th. So this is BDE, guys. This is just big energy coming in. Mars is in its exaltation of Capricorn. Jupiter is at home in Pisces. So this is the time that, and the energy that you have to like get the things done, and kind of with joy, with maybe a little bit of bravado. It's a time to be courageous. It's a time to step up for yourself, to fight for somebody else. It's a time that you're just going to say, I can conquer the things in my life that are challenging. It's about courage. It's about confidence. It's a really good time to make a deal, to ask for a raise, to tell your boss to go, you know what, themselves, because you're going to start your own business or do something else. Like, you know, you're just taking the effort and taking the energy and going about doing things. And because it's Jupiterian, it's in a big and very sometimes public way, or a very outward way that you're doing it. And you're going to feel confident and feel good about what you're doing and have the energy for it. And I think that's what's going to be interesting. It's also a good time, like if there was a time to pick to like start a war, don't listen to this, Putin. But like, you know, if there was a time, you know, we have some elections, some Jupiterian elections. An electional chart is essentially when we pick times which are like really good to do things. And there's just some really beautiful elections that are happening for this month, you know, with Jupiter in Pisces and getting that energy from Mars now that it's in the sign of Capricorn and it's no longer in Sagittarius. So if you're interested in picking some elections for yourself, for times that you want to start something and win, make sure you book a reading. All the information is below. But yes, it's a good time to win and to get things done. And so when it has to do with Mars a lot of times has to do with war. We know that there's a lot of people that are shooting off rockets and like saying that they're going to invade other nations, and there's all kinds of stuff. And it's that kind of bravado. That's the more challenging side to this, is that, you know, even though it can be really positive for taking action and doing things, like other people can use it to, you know, disenfranchise people, take their land, hurt people, and all of that. So we just want to be careful that when we are working with this energy, that we're using our power and our energy for good, not for bad. So there's going to be a lot of ego that's also associated with this, but there's going to be a little bit of check on that, just because I think Sun is conjunct Saturn, and Saturn kind of smacks it down a little bit if it gets a little too cocky, but still the energy is there. It's going to be two polar energies that are pulling back and forth. One person that's like, yeah, let's go, let's do war, let's do this thing. And other people are like, wait, maybe that's not right. Maybe this isn't the best time, So I can see that push pull going back and forth because it's Jupiterian. It's like, my way of life, my rights, my personal philosophy. I'm fighting for that. And, like when you fight for an idea, it's really hard to for someone to talk you down from that. It's an idea. It's an idea. It's an ideal. It's something that you believe in. Beliefs are something that are not easily swayed. If you believe in something, whether it be right or wrong, you're more likely to act on it if you're super passionate about it. And with Mars in the sign of Capricorn, that is passion extraordinaire and focus to get things done and create long-lasting change. And Jupiter's there with all the enthusiasm and the bravado and the bravery to do that. So for sure, it could be a little cataclysmic in some ways, but it also can be very constructive in your day-to-day life. One thing that you do want to be careful about, though, is that sometimes everything can get lost in the details. Just because Mercury is stationing direct and it's in its shadow period, so Mercury is not moving as fast as it normally does. Like Mercury is about the details and the everyday things and how, like the process of how things get done. So when we have Mars and Jupiter, it's like just jumping in, doing it, not really paying attention to the details. So the details can get lost in this whole situation, and that can be very challenging because if you jump in and you're ready to take on the whole thing, but then you forgot a small part, that small part could be integral to the win. So just make sure that you're double checking things and you're crossing all your T's and you're dotting all your I's to make sure that, when you're ready to jump in and take the plunge, you have everything that you need so you can be successful. So last but certainly not least ever with Saturn, the Sun is conjunct Saturn. We're feeling that now. We're going to feel that all the way into the 8th. It goes exact on the 3rd and it's at 15 degrees. So this is interesting because we have all this big, beautiful bravado type of energy. And then we also have this smackdown from Saturn, and so it's an interesting kind of way that we're negotiating the energy. So you might be energized to actively do things and get things done, but emotionally how you feel might be tanked. And I know I've had a lot of clients and a lot of friends calling me what's going on right now? I feel and I'm it's Sun Saturn, that can have just a heavy feeling. There's a lot of positive things, the need to feel that you're responsible, being responsible. It's kind of the weight of responsibility, the duties that you have to do. It's that whole, with great power comes great responsibility. I'm wielding something powerful. I have to have integrity with that. It's important. I have to be responsible. Words matter. The things that I say, the things that I put out in the world, they land, and I have to take responsibility for that. I have to kind of sort of, again, pull up my big boy, my big girl, my big person pants on. It's important to do that. It's where we take responsibility. It's about our karma. Saturn is often associated with that. What we put out in the world is what we're going to reap. And sometimes we don't like what we reap because we didn't sow good seeds. So all of those things, have to do with it as well. It's about authenticity. It can be about old habits, things that are just cycling through. Saturn rules cycles and time. So trying to develop new habits, but you keep cycling through that old habit. When are you going to kick the old habit and start a new habit? The best way to kick a habit is to replace it with a healthier habit. So that can be helpful too. It also can be about getting help from an older person or having to do with older people. Sometimes with the Sun conjunct Saturn, we see solar figures tank for that. Solar figures can pass away, or they can just kind of sort of be a little bit eclipsed during that time. We kind of sort of see that a little bit with what's going on with Joe Rogan and his Spotify deal, and a lot of older and just really prominent artists and self-help specialists, and all of these people are kind of sort of putting a check on what's going on, and then him coming out with his mea culpa, essentially saying, okay, I need to really honor a little bit more Saturnian things and be a little bit more responsible with what I say, and this is where I was coming from, and I have to take a certain level of responsibility. I can't just put content out there, and think that people aren't watching and whatever. And it's so interesting that happened. What's even more interesting is that he is a Leo, and he has a lot of Leo placements. He's got the Sun, he's got Jupiter, and he has Mercury in Leo. And so right now with Saturn in Aquarius, it's actually opposing his Sun. So the fact that he's getting a big Saturn smackdown in a way, in a public way, because that's a very solar thing, because the Sun is conjunct Saturn, it's just so indicative of what was going in his chart. And I just was wow, it's one of those things that happened where you just have to kind of sort of make a statement, and you have to kind of pull back on some things, but you still say, well, this is what I stand for, but actually, yeah, I understand understand what's going on. I have to be more responsible. I have to take a certain level of responsibility for what I say and what I do and what I put out there, because it means something, because it matters. Because with Saturn being in Aquarius, things stick. What you grow is going to be in your garden for a while. And as people pass by your garden, they're going to sniff those flowers. They're going to partake of that. So like, mind what you're growing if you care, if that's something that's important to you. And so, you know, I thought that was just such an interesting kind of, you know, reflection of like literally what's going on and that. But we're going to see it in many other ways. Like I said, in our lives, you know, with sometimes having to come back and say like, hey, I'm sorry, or, you know, I need to rethink this, or I need to kind of take more responsibility, or I need to just reorient the thing that I'm doing. So I also thought it was really interesting too, that in his chart, he has the sun squaring Neptune. And, you know, with the podcast and having like a lot of different people on his podcast that believe a lot of different things, that's why a lot of people liked it, because it's so, you know, he offers all these different perspectives. But with that sun square Neptune, it's very easy. And his Neptune is in Scorpio. So it's like digging into the conspiracy theory and like alternate ways of thinking and alternate information, also alternate facts. All of the whole gamut is Neptune. It's like all of the possibilities, some right, some wrong, or whatever. When it's in a square like that to his sun and also to his Jupiter, you know, if you're not careful, you can go down the wrong rabbit hole, and you can be totally like, you know, in that sun Jupiter, like I'm so bravado about the way I'm going down the wrong rabbit hole, and everybody come along with me. So it's just something, you know, to like mind when you have sun square Neptune. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Hopefully this was informative for you. I hope you got some stuff out of it. If you have any questions, make sure you leave them in the comments below. Subscribe to the video, because like, yeah, if you like the content, subscribe. And if you'd like, you know, I have Clubhouses rooms that happen like every Wednesday, so you make sure that you check out the Clubhouse link and come live so we can chat about different spiritual topics. We talk about astrology, we talk about a ton of different things. And I also have this astro forecast that happens every week, and more to come. If you're interested in the 2022 year ahead forecast, I still have that available. It's $33.33. That price is going to go up after February, so jump on that if you want to get a heads up on what's happening astrologically in this year. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.